Back. Welcome back, mate. How are you?
We have. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me back. I mean, that's the most important thing.
But you made it back for a third episode, so you're doing all right so far. Nobody said they don't want you, so until let's not entertain that because they want to get rid of me as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening. Kyle Campbell, welcome back, mate, from Newquay, as we speak, not in the Flatlands.
Beats. I have to say, I love where I live in Skeg Vegas, but down here the surf is another level. So I thought I was a god, definitely not. So it's raining and drizzly outside, but you know, we're looking forward to what's coming up ahead. But you've been a busy man, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been around a bit, mate. We've been here, there, and everywhere a little bit. It's it's been busy times. Even though we've not been at BSB for a couple of rounds, we did World Superbikes last week at Donington. And we're at MotoGP next week, so we've been granted accreditation for the British round of MotoGP. So it's time to up our game a little bit.
Very, very cool. Like as I was saying before we came on air, I was chatting to you. I really enjoyed the chats with Top Rack and Lowe's. I mean, it was just fab. It was good. It was nice.
Thanks, mate. Everybody needs to be a little bit more Top Rack. You see him on. I know World Superbike racing isn't the most exciting at the minute because of what Top Rack's doing, but just you watched the video. You watched it all. I'm just looking at the comments coming through, and I knew Ash Edwards was come out with that. Dealer principal at Ducati Preston. Evening, Ash. Evening, Jess. Congratulations. Yeah, even though World Superbikes isn't the most exciting at the moment, Top Rack is just the most incredible human. When you chat to him, no, I haven't turned into a MotoGP wanker at all. We're still doing the last 4 BSB rounds, Richard. We've got to elevate the show at some point. We need to bring more sponsors in. We need to keep the show growing, but we won't forget our roots. Don't worry about that. When we met a couple of years ago at Cadwell, when he did those laps there, and that thing at the beginning where I said, well, it's easy, you learn tracks quite quickly. You can, look at Cadwell, you learned it in 4 laps, and he went 3. So he was absolute class, and Sam was as well. Sam, it's difficult for Sam because he gets a bad rap from a reasonable majority of the motorcycle racing public, and he's not. I don't know. And again, he's the tires and everything else, as he said in the show. It's a little bit difficult at the minute, and he will just same as Alex. And you look at some of the forums, the cesspit of humanity, and some of the comments that come out, but they both get a bad rap, and Sam particularly after Moto2 and MotoGP. So it'd be nice to get a longer chat with Sam, and they're good people. They really are. They're good people, and thank you, mate. I appreciate you listening as always, and to our friends in the comments who all listen as well.
I know, but we need to get back because people have tuned in for us the review of a couple of rounds. So there's been a lot to talk about. So we were at Not Kill, and before we go any further. So fan merch for all you merch fans, you want to grab anything. So Stuart is putting on a promo. If you use the code OFFTRACK20, you get 20% off.
20.
You get 20% off everything, any kit you want for the next 24 hours. So pass that on.
I think Jennifer's downstairs. She's looking at. She's not man in the comments. She's woman in the comments. So I think Jennifer will put that up in the comments as well. She's well on top of things like that. Thank you, Jennifer.
Evening, Jennifer. And also, if there are any prospective teams that would like fan merch to do their kit for 2025, you need to get your finger out. Stuart's in the planning phase. Boom. And so, yeah, give him a contact. He can sort you out kit for next year. That we can quash all the rumors. Fan merch are going to be back in the paddock next year. We're going to talk about something later on in the chat about what's coming up, which is pretty exciting, actually. I'm pretty cool. I mean, but we'll come to that. So are we going to go straight to Not?
We do, mate. Just go straight into Brands Hatch if you want.
Brands,
man. Thing is, we've had 3 rounds, haven't we? It's gone amazingly quickly from Knockhill to Snetterton and then to Brands. This is the first chance we've had to catch up on BSB as a whole, and the fallout from Knockhill was the difficulty that Glenn had. Was made it very, very difficult for him to make ground, and Tommy taking that first win, as we were stood together at Knockhill, weren't we?
Yeah,
we were stood together watching that first race that Tommy won, which at the moment is still his only win this season, isn't it? This ain't the time to freeze on me, mate. This ain't the time. That's better. Welcome back.
There we go, man. No, I mean, it was amazing, but so a lot happened. So we had a young man win his first race, a young Scot, and his home round on that BMW, right? That was pretty cool. You know, we had the resurgence of Tommy. I mean, he was imperious at one of those races, and he rode the socks off that. And we were watching him, weren't we? We were just like, wow. You mean that he has stepped up another level, and that's so impressive, isn't it?
It is, and he's got that consistency as well. I mean, it went a little bit pear-shaped at Snetterton in, was that race 1?
Race 2 when he slid
race two on the Super Pole race, wasn't it? That's in the sprint race. Sorry, that was difficult. That was due to a coming together between him and Max Cook back at Agos, a couple of corners back. Because when I watched it, Danny Kent went in first when he took the front just before on the left-hander as they come, the right-hander, sorry, as they come back round to the Bentley straight. And Tommy went in pretty much straight after, but he was 20, 25 mile an hour quicker as he went in. I thought, hang on a minute, that's not a Tommy issue. That's in Honda terms, an electrical issue. And as it turned out, he came together with Max at Agos, and it had pushed the gear lever into the frame, and he couldn't select the gear. And when he did, it just threw him forward as he was changing down, and it just pinged him into the corner. So nobody's fault, just a racing incident, but cost him a DNF.
Yeah. But also, Glenn, didn't have the best of rounds, or has dropped a few points. We'll probably come on to that. But also Snetterton, man. So we've had first-time winner at Knockhill for Rory Skinner.
Yep.
And then we had the top hat himself, the Lord Storm Stacey, getting his win. And I have to say, that was impressive. Do you know what I mean? That, he, like he said, he thought he won 2 races because he won the first one. Then because of Rory's horrible accent, I hope he gets better soon. I mean, I want to see him back out on that BM again. But he rode like a demon possessed. I was there. I went down in the howling rain and watched him come up pit lane, and everybody was cheering him on, and it was just like, come on!
It was a brilliant ride, and to do it twice as well, because on the cool down lap he was waving to the crowd. He thought that was it, but because it was the shortened race, it wasn't 2/3 distance, so they still had to do 5 laps, and then to go out and do it again, to have the presence of mind and the ability and the bike set up to do it again. That just cemented that the win was deserved. There's absolutely no question about it. The rain's a great leveler, and to finish first, you've got to finish. So for Storm and for the GR Motorsport crew and Danny and the rest of the team and Brent, it's absolutely brilliant for them. But then, unfortunately, it was normal service resumed at Brands Hatch at the back end of the top 15, and just scrabbling around for those last points.
Another notable mention, another Scot. Come on, Scotland. Lewis Rollo. Aboard that Aprilia.
It kind of got out. It was a little bit outshadowed, wasn't he? Because it was Storm's first win, I think, for Ian Newton's team and for Dave, his mechanic, and Ian and Myra and the team, and for Lewis and his family. Absolutely brilliant. He was so made up in Parc Ferme. It was absolutely brilliant to see it. And it did get overshadowed somewhat because it was Storm's first win and Lewis's first podium. So again, it's a great leveler. And I can't imagine how much fun that Aprilia is in the wet.
Yeah, all the riders are saying how much driver gets off the corners. You mean it's good. I mean, it's lovely. I'd love to see them get full factory, or the Aprilia factory start to throw some kit at it, because they've got a bob or two, and if they can make that bike work, you mean there's something on
Absolutely.
there. So we've got the resurgence, two very young, talented riders. Storm's been in the paddock for quite a while, but Lewis has just stepped up. This is his first season, so he's doing really well in that Pathway series. But yeah, I mean, so that takes us sort of. They're the most notable points, aren't they? You mean?
Yeah, a little bit. We mentioned Danny Kent tuck in the front at Snet. The kind of wheels have come off there a little bit. The lady luck isn't quite shining down on the McCann's racing team at the moment. That's a bit of a struggle. Whereas you have Christian Hidden coming to the front, Andrew Irwin, who will come to, with Tommy's consistency, Glenn returning to some consistency, Ryan Vickers, who we'll talk about shortly. It's all coming together, and consistency is always key in any championship challenge. And it doesn't matter. It's most of the time it doesn't matter where you finish, as long as you finish, depending on what your rivals do. You don't always have to win, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, this kid's good. Do you mean? And it's to hear, because obviously
there may or may not be some correlate. Sorry, go on.
Team, brother, yada yada yada. We've been there, but yeah. So, what's your thoughts?
I think podcasts make you faster. Certainly did with Andrew. No, I was. Yeah, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that.
The way you touch
I'm only just coming back from the last one. Imogen Worcester, hi, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Imogen. Hope you're having a great day. Yeah, the Andy Irwin thing is absolutely brilliant to see. I am absolutely over the moon for him. He's had such a tough time since coming back from injury, back end of last season, early part of this season. Mm-hmm. And the bikes have the bikes have been different. They've gone a different track with Tommy's and with Andrew's. There were slight differences between them, and then Andrew, I think, he's worked his way round to Tommy's kind of way of thinking, because the results are proving it. That's the proof of the pudding's in the eating, as always. And for Tommy, with his consistency and his speed, that's the key. So Andrew's kind of getting his head around it now, and seeing him back up at the sharp end, challenging for podiums, top fives, wins. It's absolutely brilliant to see it. I absolutely love it for him. It's another face up on the podium, challenging for wins. It's another bike up there. But also, I think when it comes down to the championship fight over the last 4 rounds of Cadwell, Alton, Donington and Brands, it's going to be useful to have a teammate up there, isn't it?
As it proved at Brands. We're going to get to Brands in a minute. You mean, you're right. I mean, and I just love this game. There's so many twists and turns, and I'm loving the resurgence of Christian Hidden. You mean, sorry, Imogen, happy birthday. And if you want to grab yourself a treat, go onto the fan merch zone. You get 20% off in the next 24 hours. There's another
nicely done.
I'm getting good at this.
Nicely done, mate.
Yeah, so I don't know about you. We've talked about this every time we get together. Last season was incredible. But this season, I am hooked. Hook, line, and sinker. I always am, but this is just, there's so many twists and turns. I mean, we normally... I know, but, those 2 crashes, only getting 1 point at Brands. He was in contention for the championship. He was second. Now he's down in 5th. That's how quickly it changes.
That's how quickly it changes. He qualified second behind Ryan Vickers, you know, on the front row of the grid, middle of the front row, and it just went basically tits up from there.
I know it's. I mean, that team's obviously just a beautiful team, isn't it? They're every time you see them around the paddock, they're just so happy. They're such a family unit, and they want the success as much as he does. And you know, when you watch him on the TV. At the flick of a switch, it can change, can't it? You mean
it can bite you hard, and I think the Martrain, the McCams Racing team, they have a huge amount of experience. There's no question about that. With Spanner and Paul Morton and Emma on the tyres, and James on the electronics and the mechanics. It's a super little team with a vast amount of knowledge. But sometimes Lady Luck just doesn't go your way, and when you look at the start of race 2 at Brands, with Danny's on the outside into Paddock Hill Bend, and the Stephen Witt, the boys in commentary, mentioned it. If you're on the outside at Paddock Hill Bend, you are taking your race into your own hands, because you have a higher percentage of being the bigger part of somebody else's accident than you causing it. And that pileup could have ended at the 2 or even 3 seasons. We've seen what happens when you go into Paddock Hill Bend, and you know you're at the mercy of the hill and the gravel trap. So the main thing was that everybody came out of it relatively unscathed. I know Danny had a big gash in his arm, and it kind of hindered him in race 3 a little bit. Danny would just been through the washing machine, and although it looked quite serious for Glenn, when they weren't sure, it goes back to Steve Hislop going through Paddock Hill Bend, and when he broke his neck there, you have to be so cautious, and they were right to put him on the scoop, and they were right to immobilize him and take him in. So it looked an awful lot worse than it was, but the precautions were perfect, and the Heroc Race Safe Marshals and the medical team, big shout out as always, because they are the best in the business.
They are. I mean, I don't know about you, but I held my breath, because I thought, we've talked about this before. You don't want a championship to end in the ground. Riders put in and Glenn puts in, and you know, I think he's really in tune with his body, so he knew straight away. The fact he was on the grid for race 3, I was like, man, that man's made of steel. Do you mean? So
yeah. Yeah, go for it.
And I think the winner, I think we're both in agreement. You know what I mean? And there's someone who's come back from adversity. He's missed 2 rounds. Was it Alton Park?
Donington.
I can't remember. Donington, yep. And
broken collarbone.
He comes back and dominates like a.
I wasn't expecting that. And he wasn't expecting that either. Was Ryan Vickers? He dominated almost every session. He was on pole, won every race, fastest lap. It was the full gentleman's set. And so, hang on, let's have a look. Okay, from Jennifer, we're having a fair bit of cut out from your side, mate. We're getting a bit of. I've seen a couple of messages come through. There's going to be a few pictures of you on the internet if you keep freezing. You know when it like goes like that. There's going to be sort of a few of those about. So you've just got a little bit of internet issue at your end, mate. Just to let you know.
I'll tell you what. I'll see if I can go. It might be because we're in the little cottage.
Oh, they've got electricity in Cornwall. Look at that.
They have. We're having trouble with the internet. Is that okay if I sit in here?
Sorry, Zoe.
Sorry, Zoe. You said sorry. Is that a bit better?
Yeah, it looks all right to me, mate. Just so it doesn't keep freezing. That's all.
Okay. I've just seen from Woody about Kyle Ryde. Wow. You mean there's a man who's turned things around as well. So I just thought we'd touch on that, because obviously this is all about your fans and the followers of the Off Track podcast, and I think it's important that we try and recognise what they said. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, from nowhere.
Yeah, the Gorilla OMG Yamaha team did absolutely brilliant all weekend. It was quite telling what Ryan said after the third race, in like, they put my bike back how I want it. And I think there was a lot of frustration at Snetterton about that because the bike just wasn't doing what he wanted to do. And also in terms of what Kyle's doing, Kyle, he has a very particular front end feel for the Yamaha, how he likes it. And by what he said at the end of the weekend, he said he changed to the SC1 front, exactly what Jack Russell said. He normally relies on the SC2. He likes it firm. He likes the feedback. He likes to feel what's going on that front wheel. It's almost like that front end's almost like a girder for him, so he can feel the feedback through the track. And changing to the SC1, the slightly softer tire from the SC2 being the hardest, SC1, then the SC0 being the softest that they're allowed to run. So the SC1's being that middle ground a little bit now. And it absolutely turned it round completely. And Jack's right. It was the difference that Kyle needed, because before that, he was struggling so much. And he just needed that little turnaround in fortune to give him that confidence that you can use the SC1 and it does work.
When your teammate is 10 seconds ahead of you winning, you're like, it has to work. But
exactly. When on identical bikes with identical suspension, everything's the same apart from your front tire. There's a difference.
I love Kyle's riding style. He is proper, Martin-esque. I just when he comes down clearways, you had Tommy bolt upright on the bike. Do you know what I mean? And then him leaning off the bike. It's just like, it's just amazing to watch. Do you know what I mean?
Completely contrasting styles.
Yes,
Christian was another one where the styles were contrasting. Christian's a very typical racer, very old school with his style, same as Tommy Bridewell. But Kyle's off down the side, and when he's going into the corner, I need to ask Tommy Hill about this, because he still freaks me out that he goes into corners with both feet off the pegs.
How?
I don't understand why he does it, and I need to ask him. And I know he's not watching because he's busy off doing other things. But happy birthday, Kyle!
Okay, so you'll probably know this. Do you remember when Leon Haslam used to do the old knee thing? He'd flap his knees.
A stress monitor.
Yeah, and you were like going, what's he doing that for? He stopped doing it. So he's obviously either been trained out of him, or I don't know, he just taught himself not to do it. But he was the only rider doing it. It's the same with Kyle. Feet off. Every time he...
Anything under heavy braking and off they go.
And they always say that the balls of your feet on your pegs is what give you the control, isn't it? It allows
you're putting your weight through your pegs, absolutely. Unless you get turning when you put one leg out and it changes the center of gravity of the bike, and they're doing the Rossi, the doctor's dangle. That makes a bit of a difference. But there's a couple of friends popping up on the way. Niall Conway, Nilo, you joined us, mate. Congratulations! Thank you very much, mate. We were out for a big meal at World Superbike. There was 27 or 28 of us on the Saturday night, and Niall's a great friend of ours from Ireland, and we only see him once a year, and that was cool. But it was cool that we were joined by Michael van der Mark as well, and Mickey was sat opposite us, and Chaz Davis at the far end. Steve English's usual night in Gandhi's.
He says, "Do you mean?" Hobnobbing with the best
Good
of
fun.
The world.
He's not lost on me. I just sit there going like, "What on earth am I doing?" But anyway, back to Kyle Ryden to Ryan Vickers. Ryan was absolutely outstanding, and just untouchable. And it was the back to the place where he won his first race of his BSB career last year.
Yep, it was a wet race though, wasn't it?
It was red flagged.
That was it, yeah, 3/4 distance.
It was red flagged. Then he took his first official win at Donington later on, which was brilliant for him. But to see him ride like that, we know he can pedal. We know he can ride a bike. The Yamaha was absolutely on point around Brands Hatch, and it was up to everybody else to catch up. And it was... The thing with Ryan is sometimes he can come across as there's a fine line. We said this before. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. Sometimes that line is blurred, but I thought he was so humble and full of humility at the end of race 3 that it was like, that's it. And he was sat up on the grid, and things had changed a little bit, and it was great to see it, because it's like, that's absolutely spot on.
It was interesting because I never picked up on that last year. We interviewed him quite a lot because you know, he was coming up on stage and stuff, and I never picked up. Oh yes, so talking.
No,
about,
you carry on. It's all right. It's just replying to Dark Wolf of Odin. It's slightly disappointing. Dave's not wearing that ultra sexy, ultra ugly and co cap.
I will have one at next. The next time we do this, I'll have one of them on. That's so cool. At Thruxton, I'm going to be going straight to Ugly and Co.
As if we've got any left, mate. They're a limited edition. There was only 20 ever made.
Right. Do you know, I might know someone called Dave Neal who might be able to, I'll pay for it. could I just live on YouTube?
It's going up on my little wall of fame that you can see just at the back there.
Just say, yeah, and I'll ping you the money, mate. No, I love that kit. Like we've talked about the design and everything. It's really cool.
We'll see.
So my winners, obviously, Ryan Vickers. I mean, King of Brands as well. Those 3 wins, everything you talked
about. Undisputed.
But Tommy Bridewell coming through what was a tough weekend. You know, we're not going to dwell on it too much. But he had, you know, a bit of a sickness bug, not feeling well. But there was other issues going on. You know, and I think sort of coming from the fire service in 28 years, I appreciate sometimes you can go through stuff when you don't really appreciate. You know, you're like, yeah, it's fine. You think about it. But other days it really gets you. And I think that was one of those days, and he had to perform, and that's tough. That is, you know, to be able to go out there and do what you do. Yeah. So respect, Tommy. I doff my cap.
100%. And it always seems to fall on the same weekend every year with the BSB calendar. It tends to follow the same weekends most years. And for that to be the weekend that we lost Ollie 17 years ago makes it just adds extra pressure and extra emotion to what is already an emotional season, with Honda taking his first win at Knockhill, taking a win with Honda's first since 2013. And you just look at him and think how much the family have been through over the years, and how much, you know, time's a great healer, as many people know. But for it still to be so raw for him, and the emotion of being on the podium, I think he would have been absolutely mortified if he hadn't done at least one podium this weekend. That was the sole point. I mean, it looked like the bike didn't handle anyway. It seemed to be that they were struggling with setup this weekend. It felt the bike just didn't kind of do what it wanted to do for him. And there were places where Andrew looked an awful lot quicker, especially on corner entry. And Tommy was the Honda generally is really good on corner entry, it seems. And the 600, as you saw in Supersport with Jack. And it just didn't quite come together. But 3 solid finishes, an unfortunate DNF for Glenn. It was a difficult weekend for him, but he still comes out is he 16 points ahead in the championship?
I've got 19 points ahead of Glenn. 19,
that's it. There we go. Yep. I've changed the screen over. There we go. 19. So it makes it, that's how you put a championship challenge together. This is what we said about consistency. You know, when he's not on the best of form, he's still finishing on the podium, if not in the top 5. So it's all in. He's got 8. Was it how many? 8 second places. Is incredible.
Yeah, totally. He's like Mr. Consistent at the moment. You know, just looking down, you've got Glenn is in second, Christian's in third, with 24 points behind, and obviously the points changed for the last 3 rounds.
Yeah,
Kyle has done incredibly well, you know, to bring himself up, because Knockhill was a disaster for him. You know, I wouldn't say that, you know, he had his best round at Snetterton, and then, you know, this round he started off on the wrong foot, but really stepped it up. So I don't know why I haven't put him down as my winner, or one of my winners, because that's a biggie. And then obviously Danny is 68 points behind now, and that's quite a lot, isn't it? To
it is back, considering he was second in the championship up to a couple of rounds ago, which makes it so. There's a long way to go yet. That's the good thing. There's a long way to go, in so much as you say, the points change for Alton and for Donington, and then they change again for Brands with 35 up for grabs. So with per race. So yeah, there's so much room left in the championship. Yeah, even Ryan was saying, you know, he's not counting himself out. It's going to be a big ask, and as Dave Greenslade said, he just needs that consistency, that's what's let him down this year. And you're not going to win a BSB championship without consistency. Look at the winners over the years. It's been ultimate consistency that's done it. Just an interesting one. As I'm just flicking back through at this point. Where is he? Where's he gone? A certain Mr. Benjamin James Curry. There he is. Are we going to see Tommy turn around his Thruxton form now he's on the Honda? Well, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? Because unless they've had a miraculous turnaround with the Ducati Superbike and its edge grip, Spud Nesbitt was on the podium 3 times last year at Thruxton on the Hawk Honda. So with the new parts and the Tommy effect and his home round, you would sincerely hope so, mate. Yeah, but a great weekend for your teammate as well, for Christian Idden. It's that was a good, solid weekend for him as well, which is really good to see.
I mean, that was I really enjoyed watching that Super Sport. Thanks, Ben. You know, you laid everything on the line. The last couple of laps were brilliant. You know, and that Honda, what Jack's doing on Honda. So throw this out there now. He'll be on a Superbike next year.
Well, that's a big shout.
HRC Honda. Come on, man.
That's a nah. I don't know about that. He's got a lot to do this year. Nah, I don't know.
An unproven 600 that's been brought back from the dead.
Yeah, no, that. But
and he's doing what he does. It's like, wow.
At the moment, he's he is one of the best supersport riders that we've ever seen. 4 championships, most successful supersport rider. He is making Ben dig deeper than he's ever dug. But for 2 slight mistakes on the last lap, he doesn't need reminding of that. It was incredible. The cat and mouse between them over the weekend, and where the Ducati was stronger versus where the Honda was stronger, and down on the back straight from Surtees to Hawthorns, it was almost pulling these stickers off on the way past. The grunt and the pace of that Ducati is incredible, but the turning and the corner speed of that Honda is different again. And it could have been either one of them. And it's one of those races, you're like, oh yeah, oh go on, yeah, no, bugger. And you're like, but then you look at what Jackson, you're like, fair play, mate. You keeping Ben honest, and Ben still leads a championship, which is great for him and for Oxford Products Racing. So he's always there in the background, aren't you, mate? I know you're watching him, probably watching it with Kirsty on the telly. So good evening to you both. But yeah, there's work to be done by both, because that's going to go right down to the wire. Luke Stapleford seems to have drifted away. He can't keep the consistency. The great hope of Rhys Irwin and Geerlink has faded a little bit into sort of late top 10s, which not quite what was heralded. And then you bring in the Brad Peary thing. Well, would Brad have done any better? And he's, tit for tat and all that kind of thing. But the Supersport battle is definitely between the two of the heavyweights, and the respect between the two of them is fantastic. And I would like to hope that will continue right to the end of the season, especially when things get really funky as we get to the last couple of rounds.
And explaining it, and it was absolutely hammering at Snetterton. So everyone was in the tent and everyone was captivated, and he did it. But I thought, if I could have got the 3 of them on stage, hang on, just throw it. No, you mean? And I thought that'd be quite cool. Do you mean? Because it's we like, no, you're not. I take it I was putting myself into the lion's den then.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay,
just a little bit. I think. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. Ben and Jack get on the best of the 3, but then you throw Luke in there, and Luke. I think he's a catalyst, because he just doesn't care. He'll say what he wants, and he'll be. He's and he should be. He can be admired for that, but the consistency is just not quite there with the Triumph and Luke at the minute.
I need to make that happen now, because I'm really interested. I'm going to make sure it's video for YouTube, because if we have some night weather outside, forget your Tyson fight with this celebrity dude. Do you mean this could be the next big thing? Yeah. So back to to brands. I mean, it was really nice to see young Franco starting to.
Yeah.
I know he only had one really good result, which was 9th, was it? And he had a mechanical, and he had a bit of an off. But we forget that he's a proper rookie. I mean, he's still. I think he's just turned 20. He's an up and coming star. Do you mean?
There's absolutely no question of that. Franco's a great kid. And, we commented over the weekend how much he is maturing really well. And he's always had an older head on younger shoulders. There's no doubt about that. He's such a great talent. And having Dave and Boasty and the team around him, you couldn't wish for any better circle and Matt with the team. It's the commentary team were bigging him up nicely over the weekend, and he'd qualified strong, and his pace was good, and he was up there in the early part of the races. And again, it just didn't fall for him. The cards just don't fall. And racing is a fickle mistress. Ben will tell you that. Ben's gone through some of the hardest times as a racer, and when you come back and the good times start rolling, they taste even sweeter. And Franco he's up there with Max Cook and with Charlie Nesbitt kind of already. He did 2/3 of last season in the Honda team, but the Honda Fireblade at the time wasn't the article it is now, with Tommy's import and the relationship with the World Superbike team and what have you. So yeah, he is on the perfect trajectory at the minute. The one thing that again that raises its head on that front is, where does he go? Does he stay in BSB for all his career, or does he try and make that step to World Superbike? And if he can he master the electronics? Ooh.
Yeah, but
there's one for you, kiddo.
That's a whole podcast. I mean, you got Brad Ray. I was watching him at Most, and obviously Taron knocked himself out at Donington, which is absolutely superb. Do you mean it's the fact that they're taking into account the rider's well-being and health? Yes, he'll be chomping at the bit, and he probably felt okay, but we've experienced that with Max Cook when we both interviewed him at Cadwell Park after his off. It was slurring his words. So you think you can't take that lightly now, and I think it's nice that it's through all the series now that they have this protocol in place. I don't know. I think he needs to learn his craft. You've said he's got an amazing team behind him. I love, Rick's just said there, Obsession Engineering. I love watching Dave Hewson. He's a proper geek, but I love that. You know what I mean? It's like, Zoe goes, what are you watching? This man's just talking about stuff. I went, I know, but it's stuff that I don't know.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Man. It's the best stuff. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, look at those shocks. Wow. You know what I mean? So
you learn a lot from Dave and Obsession Engineering.
We always happen to pitch up next to each other at the camping at each round, and sort of, you'll sort of start to. That's another thing as well. The work that the mechanics, that the engineers, that everything do, the crew chiefs. It's the proper graft from Thursday through to Sunday, don't they?
Yeah, and I think that there's rarely a team that doesn't. But to see them in their first year with a full fat superbike, it's an incredible undertaking, and it's great to see. They're such good people, and when you're out and about in the paddock, when you're visiting BSB, if you get a chance to talk to Boasty or to Dave, just proper people, well, Lincolnshire people. But hey.
I'll talk about Lincolnshire people. So if anybody wants to visit Bateman's, which is at Wainfleet, just round the road from me, they do very good beer and nice tours. So we're just doing a bit for the Lincolnshire, aren't we? We're promoting the county. Talking about promoting the county.
Yellow bellies are us. Hey, I've got something to say, though, apparently. Apparently, the shoes have to wait.
Oh, okay. So DC, for those of you.
So we don't have to say anything on that front.
Access to DC. So we are going to be to pros to aim at next year. So we're going to be bigger and better. But there is going to be some really cool DC clad athletes around the paddock. And I can probably say this, Davey Todd is going to be one of them. The superstar. I can't say, okay. So let's
I don't know. I'm just reading this that Stu sent. But fan merch will be at MotoGP, by the way. Did you know that?
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, I can't because I'm going to see Anjuna Deep down in London with the lovely Zozo. So yeah.
But apparently the shoes have to wait. Apparently, but you maybe know more about that than I do. So apologies to our viewers and our listeners. But yes, there's some superb things coming with fan merch over the rest of this year and into next year as well. So, and don't forget your Off Track 20 coupon code.
Absolutely. So it goes for 24 hours. So obviously I threw that firework in about...
that was it. You threw that one in well, mate.
Thing is, I've been like just going through it and going, yeah, I reckon so. But so you always say that brands is when things start to happen for 2025. Are you still staying at that? Do you think the teams are going to stay the same? Manufacturers are going to stay the same?
Yeah, I mean, I'll come on to that shortly. Just Ben's just made a point that Luke's triumph was rapid at Navarra, which it absolutely was, because you could see it on track that that Luke's profile triumph was right up there with Davey Todd and with Ben on the Ducatis. But then the balancing rules come in. I think Ben will correct me on this one if I'm wrong. But after round 3, I think they look at balancing rules, and then they're not always right. That Scott Smart tries his best to make things equal, but when you've got, as Whit explained across the front row, you've got the different manufacturers. You've got the Yamaha R6 in there. You've got the Ducati in there that's a twin, and you've got the Triumph in there that's a triple, and the Honda that's a 4. There's so much going on, and they're doing the best to make it level. But I don't know. It's way beyond my understanding, that technical level of stuff. I am technically inept when it comes to motorcycles. I know a little bit about racing. I like people, and I run a bit of a podcast. That's about my level.
Dude, you are like the font of all knowledge. The amount of knowledge that you have in your head is off the scale. So don't knock it, man. You know what I mean? It's like I go to bed and wake up in the morning and forget where I am. I go, wait, why is the sea so close to the house? We're in Newquay. But yeah, it's really shaping up, isn't it? I think Brands was... it showed the mettle of some of the riders. The teams now are halfway through the season. We're starting to get that to the pointy end, aren't we?
Starting to play out now, isn't it? I think once we're done at Thruxton and Cadwell, we're back to circuits that we've already been to. And that's where things start to come into play. Cadwell's a Nadri little circuit. It's our home circuit, the Jewel in the Lincolnshire countryside. But not everybody enjoys it. That's a tight little track, and it gets tighter and tighter every year as the bikes get more powerful. Thruxton, as we've seen, the Ducatis don't like it there. That might change this year. The Honda loves it. The Kawasaki comes into its own at Thruxton. The one round where you can get that Kawasaki up onto the podium. And after what Jason did last year on the R1, and you see what he did at Donington when he's got the right bike underneath him and he's got it working, he can be up there. And Max Cook missed out on the podium last year just by a smidge. So there's no reason why he won't be up there as well. So it's going to be... We've got a couple of rounds to get through before it settles down completely. People need to get through it injury-free with a bit of consistency. And then once we go to Alton Park in the middle of September, which isn't that far away, really, that's when the fireworks start. The points change and everything gets just turned up to 9 or 10, and then Brands, it gets turned up to 11. And the final third of the season for me is going to be probably as intense as last year.
Yeah, I really, really hope
with more people involved.
You did a really good podcast with the Haslams, by the way, so I really enjoyed listening to them. So really good, insightful podcast with I mean, he knocked himself up at Knock Hill. That was a horrible crash, and he threw it down the road a couple of times at Snetterton. And you could see that he was struggling a little bit at Brands, but he was still up there in the mix. You know what I mean? And you just think,
you can't buy experience, can you?
No.
And you can't buy determination. And those two are everything that Leon has in spades.
Hard as nails.
Luck is something he doesn't have in spades. Yeah. You won't want to. He's as we've said it before. There's a lot of riders that are the same. But if you got into a fight with him, it doesn't matter how hard you hit him, he's just going to keep getting up. And you're like, for God's sake, stay down. And he wouldn't. He'll just keep getting up and up and up. Ben will know this because he trains with him regularly. He knows how deep that boy can dig. But he spoke about the issues that he'd been having with the BMW, and that, namely getting it to stop. There's nothing wrong with the power of the BMW. There's nothing wrong too much with the chassis of the BMW. His issue has been stopping, and Leon explained previously that he is really tough on the brakes, and he will go into one, and he does. He's not a progressive braker. He smashes the brakes on. Yeah. And it's something that he relies on heavily. And if they're not quite right, he can't kind of do what he wants to do. Which, and especially such is the nature of racing, braking as well as acceleration is equally as important, sometimes more, depending on how your bike's set up. So, it's been a frustrating time for Leon. And I think hopefully that will come good and he can get regularly up the sharp end. And again, it's another bike in the mix before the end of the season. So a couple of Hondas, a couple of Ducatis, a couple of Yamahas, chuck the odd Kawasaki up there as well. And it starts to become a fairly eclectic mix by the time we get to Alton Park.
I mean, confidence breeds confidence, doesn't it? I mean,
100%.
We're talking about, Lee Bob, and he's starting to get grips that Honda had his best result. I think it was sixth in the last race. So he goes
right under the radar again.
Yep, goes well.
Lee Bob just going about his business, and something's turned around for him as well, because he was super frustrated when we spoke pre-Donington at a Completely Motorbikes do at Hinckley. We spoke on stage there, and you could sense there was frustration. It hasn't quite gone the way that he wanted to with the switch to Hawk and to the Mastermac Honda, but it's coming together slowly but surely, and there's nothing to stop Jacko being pushed into that mix. And Charlie Nesbitt's creeping forward as he did at Brands. He's coming into the back end of that top 10 and sort of pushing for the mid top 10. So they're all there or thereabouts, but everybody just made to look not fighting for the other players. I was going to say made to look ordinary, but none of the riders out there are ordinary. But they were made to fight for the rest of the places by a completely dominant Ryan Vickers. Will he do the same at Thruxton? Can he? We know he can do it at Cadwell. He's the next lap record holder.
Yeah.
So he's got the pace at Cadwell.
You were talking about Cadwell getting smaller and the lap times getting faster. They still haven't broken the lap time from Brands, which was, I think, set by Shaky the 18th century. You know what I mean? And so the bikes, the technology's there. It's this fascinating thing, isn't it? So it's they're accelerating faster out the corners. Are they coming into the corners faster? I don't know. It's like
the one thing this year. The one thing. Sorry to interrupt, Mike. The one thing this year is that SC1 rear tire that everybody's got to use. Sorry, SC0. I can never remember. I should remember this, and I keep forgetting. I think they all have to run the 0. There's no X.
So the X was
somebody's going to correct me on this in the comments. I know they are. But they're all running the same. You can only choose the 0 or the 1 as a rear tire. So that's going to slow the pace down anyway. If you haven't got an X, which is what most SC0. Thanks, Ash. Much appreciated, mate. Most people run out of the 0 or the 1. And the 0 is now the softest versus the X, which is what a lot of the lap records were set on. So especially your shorter sprint race, everybody would be pretty much on the X on that. So the lap times were shorter.
It's interesting. You're reading the comments
Jeff,
as well.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments as well. Jeff Lapworth, good evening, mate. How are you? Nice to hear from you. I'll give you a call tomorrow, mate. That affects things as well, and it also affects setup a little bit. 'Cause the tire's a little bit harder, the carcass is a little bit stiffer. So it's yeah, there's so much going on, and that's what the idea was at the end of last year to make a huge step in kind of slowing the bikes down a little bit as best they can. But it hasn't gone too bad this year, I don't think. But just you got to remember that's one of the major factors for this year in how things have changed.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that whole tire thing. But moving on to Thruxton, we have got it's where Danny Kent's season ended last year on the Lovell Honda. With that big crash. With the resurgence in the triple. It was the young guns were fighting for the podium. So it's going to be fascinating. Are the Honda's going to be up there? Is the Yam going to work? How long are we going to go? It's properly like a melting pot. It's really good. I mean, have Ducati sorted their side tire issue?
That's going to be the biggest thing, and that'll be a huge thing for Glenn and for Christian, because of especially for Christian with his consistency over the last few rounds. That's going to be something they'll be working hard on over the weekend, and Ben will back me up on that one for sure. It's going to be a very, very strange weekend. There's going to be an awful lot of work to do on the Friday before things kick off for qualifying on Saturday.
It's fascinating. I don't know how they do that. How do you change the characteristic of the bike to accelerate around those corners without using the side to the difference?
There's such long radius corners, aren't they?
It's like it. Yeah, we're going to know straight away on the Friday. By the end of Friday, we'll know.
You would suggest so, yeah. By the end of Friday, there's what's that, an hour and a half's worth of track time just about to get things sorted as best they can. Amazing. It's going to be, and that's only a fortnight away, isn't it? It's a fortnight on Thursday, I think, that everybody will be down there.
Yeah.
As Ben says, top 10 for the Dukes will be like a win, and it absolutely will be. It's damage limitation for the two of them. So
here's a question:
go ahead.
Does Ben have the same issue in the the super sport class as the big boys have in the BSB class? Will he be struggling against the inline fours and the Triumph?
Answer that one, Ben. We'll have a look in the comments below, and for all the viewers as well, keep an eye on the comments. As Ben's quite happy in the comments below. If I know he was going to be this active, he could have joined us. He could have come on.
I know.
But it's great to see, and I'm glad he's on good form after what was a reasonably difficult weekend for him.
2 seconds.
Well, how are we doing for time, mate? Yeah, 2 seconds in a normal weekend is fine, but for both races by, what was it, literally 0.2 of a second, if that, as a combined time is difficult to deal with. We've got 8 minutes left, mate. We're all right yet. We try and keep this to an hour. And I know you're on holiday, so you're doing a mega job.
No, thanks.
People are still tuned in, which is great. So thank you to all of you that are still here.
I know I've missed you. So don't forget. I'm just pulling a favor, man. That one of those hats needs to be on this bald, shiny head. Right? that's what we need to. I can't believe you've only had 20. You could sell 200 of those puppies like that.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what I'm like with the podcast. I don't assume that people will buy the merch and things like that. Let's have a look. Edge grip is a huge problem for my Ducati, hence why it was so hard to beat the Honda. However, I have 100 less horsepower, so not as much of a problem at Thruxton. So that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ben. That's cool. So you'll have to come up, Ben, and we'll have a little quick conversation, and I'll have a ring around the interview area, and we'll throw in Luke and maybe. No, I'll tell you what. But after
100 less horsepower than the V4. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's right. 100 less horsepower than the V4.
Yeah, cool.
Which makes that life a little bit, not 100 less than the Honda.
So he's not tearing it up as he goes around those long radius corners. So you're not going to be
not as difficult.
Thruxton, are you?
No, we're not doing the flyaways this year. We've done World Superbike. We're going to head down to MotoGP, which we're delighted with after being turned down last year. We've got a couple of chats lined up already. We've got the Moto3 Championship leader David Alonso and Moto2 challenger Alonso Lopez. We're finding it difficult to get hold of the MotoGP boys because it's the 75th anniversary of Grand Prix racing at Silverstone. So everybody's doing these fancy new liveries for Sunday. They're all going to retro liveries. So there's a massive media presence on Thursday. And all the liveries are being displayed on Thursday throughout the afternoon. So trying to get hold of a lot of the MotoGP riders has been difficult. We got turned down for Digia, which is a shame. But to be fair to Paul Bertrand, the PR man from BR46, we can do a video call with him over the coming GPs. So he's quite happy for us to do that, and it's a monster event as well. So a lot of the monster riders are seconded, but we'll keep trying. We've got a few irons in the fires and a few ideas to do for the Thursday. So we'll not come away short, that's for sure.
Mate, looking forward to it. They'll be really good. Like I said, enjoyed the last couple from the World Superbikes. So just a reminder to everybody before we sign off, it's 20% off. Anything on Fan Merch site, all you have to use is the OffTrack20 code and you get 20% off. So that's for Imogen, a little birthday present for you. And, if any teams or if you know of any teams are looking to get kit sorted and you like some good quality, you've got reliability and you get me interviewing your riders if you really want to, and Dave as well, then please get in touch with Stuart McLaren at Fan Merch, and he will sort you out. Obviously, you'll need to sort out your livery and your sponsors and all that, so it doesn't happen overnight. But yeah, it's cool. We're going into the really exciting part, Dave, aren't we? We're both buzzing.
We are. Ben's just checking out. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for your interaction tonight, mate. Much appreciated. It's always great to have your input, and you're always welcome on, mate. You know that. Enjoy the rest of your evening, dude. Yeah, I've enjoyed that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure. When's the next one?
So,
did we say Cadwell?
Yes, after Cadwell, because then we'll have had
Thruxton and Cadwell.
Thruxton, Cadwell, and the last one will be Brands.
Yeah,
and by then
perfect.
we will know who's who and who's going where, or you mean.
So, yeah, so on the next one, we'll have a bit more of an insight into movers and shakers and potential who's going where and things like that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I did last time. You have your holiday. You thank you as always for your time, mate. I'm going to stop on a little bit longer and chat to some of our friends on the feed. It can be question and answer time for me. We stopped on for 20 minutes last time, and it was good fun. So. Yeah, on Stoned Lever. Who's going where? Well, we'll save that one for Cadwell because by the time I get to Cadwell and start talking to a few friends, oh, you don't care? Okay, fair enough. Brilliant. Thanks for that. Yeah, some strange comments. Norman Kane, our great friend from Northern Ireland, great shout. Armoy this weekend. Davey Todd on the Cheshire Mouldings BMW, and Connor Cummins on the FHO bike as well, which will be an interesting one. That's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. So,
resurgence of Connor Cummings, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be great.
Yeah,
absolutely great to see him back. It's been a tough year for him, but there's so much more to get through. We'll maybe make it a bit longer after Cadwell. Maybe start a bit later, 8 o'clock. Let people join in a bit more, and maybe do one till sort of 9:30, something like that. But that'll be the Tuesday after Cadwell Park.
It will, yes.
Not the Monday, because we'll still be there. Mate, go and enjoy your fantastic holiday. Thank you to Zoe for crashing your first evening away, and make sure you enjoy some good surf time, mate. And thank you as always.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you all at Thruxton.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Campbell. Cheers, dude.
Cheers, man.
You got to try and find. There he is. That's it. Oh, well. Now it is just me. Do you have any questions for me, or am I going to go downstairs and have a hot chocolate and put my feet up? What have we got? Ash Edwards is still there. Thank you, mate. Maggie, nice to see you. Glad you're here. Stuart Woods, Davey Todd. We know all about Davey Todd, don't we? Crumbly Mal, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if everybody's going to bugger off, that's fine. So will I. We've still got 33 people joined in. But from an off-track point of view, thank you very much to all of you for joining in on this one on the live shows. They're good fun to do, and Kyle's brilliant. It's not his forte. He's still getting used to it. It's still something that he's. I know the feeling well. It's that feeling of should I be doing this? Can I do this? And yeah, he absolutely can. There's no question. He's a great guy. So thank you for joining us. Ash Edwards, do you think they'll make more restrictions on the V2 for next season? the balancing rules, mate. That's the one that's going to be the key to it all. Is what Scott Smart decides how he wants to do it. It's one of those where he's got strengths in different places to the Honda, hasn't it? The Honda on corner entry was just incredible over the weekend, but Ben's ultimate top end, once he gets it spooled up, is absolutely outstanding. So he's finding the best of both worlds, isn't it? And as a Ducati man yourself, I know you won't want to see it handicapped too much, and backing Ben for the championship this year, and rightly so. But yeah, that's down into the hands of Scott Smart, isn't it? That's one to see what's going to go on with that. Woody, what do you think of Super Teens, Dave? Seems like absolutely mega racing so far. Doesn't that show you how good racing is when all the bikes are equal? Doesn't that just show you how it's down to rider ability? I'm a lot more in favour of the Super Teens than I was Junior Supersport, because the Junior Supersport just felt dangerous, and I never really enjoyed that. But the Kawasaki Super Teens, watching the boys and girls, well done, Chloe James, through that series is outstanding, and I think it's a real solid proving ground now for riders going forward. So thank you for that, Woody. Mid-season prediction for the championship, Dark Wolf of Odin. Difficult. I think Tommy has the impetus at the minute, but that's not to say Glenn won't come back. And Thruxton's going to be a big turning point, I think, if Tommy can come out of that with 3 podiums and Glenn doesn't make it onto the podium, and Christian as well with the Ducatis, as we said, with the side grip, and Thruxton being a bit of the scourge for the Ducatis, then that'll be a big playing point. And when you look at Cadwell last year, when Tommy won the 3rd race against Glenn, that also was a massive turning point in the championship. So coming to a couple of tracks that Tommy could make a big impression on. But I think it'll be between Tommy and Glenn. Christian will play his part in the results. Whether he can bring in a championship challenge, I'd like to see it, because the more the merrier. So Tommy at the moment, that might change though. Pete Hastelow, if you were to move a rider up from each class, who would you move up? Oh, blimey. That's a tricky question. It's difficult because I genuinely don't know. I really don't know. You caught me on the hop with that one. There's the first question that catches me out. Thanks, mate. I'd like to see Ben get another crack on a superbike. I'd like to see Jack get another crack on a superbike. There aren't too many of the younger riders kind of making it happen in Supersport at the minute for whatever reason. Eugene McManus will ultimately end up on a superbike, I'm sure, but there's a bit of consistency to come for the Northern Irishman there. But I think there's nobody to move up as yet from Superstock. Davey Todd, you would suggest, but he was supposed to be on the superbike this year, as we know, but for various reasons that didn't work out. How well would he go on a superbike? This is the question. I'm not kind of sure just what roads he would make, because the only reason I say that is because in the interview that we did back at Donington, his superbike is set up an awful lot like the stock bike, and that kind of makes me think, well, how well would it go on the short circuits? It works well for the Superstock style with the Superstock electronics, and it works well for the superbike on the roads. But it's an interesting conundrum, that. But yeah, great question. Thanks, mate. Will anyone be running a Bimotor in BSB, Stuart? I don't know whether the Kawasaki's will turn to that. It's still the oldest bike on the grid, and they weren't kind of too clever at Brands Hatch, which is difficult for Darren and for Somai running the Kawasaki's. So something has to change there, because next season they'll be another year older. So we might not see Kawasaki's around next season. It'd be great if they could bring a Bimotor in. Why not? It's another brand for the championship. So yeah, that would be great to see. Let's have a look. Crumbly Man, will Toprak be the man to take BMW into MotoGP? I think it's his best chance of a factory ride. And as Keenan said, Toprak won't go to MotoGP without a factory ride. And I don't see any of the regular factory teams taking a punt on Toprak If you remember, he did that test at Jerez, didn't he, on the Yamaha, and didn't really record the best of times. But the Yamaha wasn't at its best anyway. And I don't know how contrived the times were to make him not look quite as good as he is. I don't know. I'm spitballing. I don't know for sure. It's just my opinion. But whether he spent too long on a production bike to then go to a super stiff MotoGP bike at his age, and maybe World Superbike is the best place for him and can make a fantastic living. But yes, I would suggest BMW moving to MotoGP is his best option for a factory ride. Let's have a look. Rick, you got the notification. Excellent. I'm glad we managed to do it. Let's have a look. Rebecca Clark, are you branching into World Superbike interviews? Love your top right one. Thanks, Rebecca. We need to bring in the best guests we possibly can for you guys and girls. That's the bottom line. We need financial support to do it. We need sponsorship to be able to bring the best of riders. BSB is fantastic. World Superbikes is great. MotoGP is great. There's a whole host of riders and managers and mechanics and people out there with so many stories that we want to keep bringing them to you. But it's expensive. So yes, we'd like to do a couple of World Superbike rounds a year. Yes, we'd like to do a couple of MotoGP rounds a year. They're not jollies, that's for sure. There's a lot of work goes into prep beforehand. There's a lot of new people to meet. There's a lot of new ways of doing things. And while Stuart and the team at BSB give us grace to do the interviews that we do, to go through for full proper press accreditation at World Superbike and MotoGP, you have to earn it. And we've done that with you fantastic subscribers, viewers, and listeners. So it's down to you find people that we get these accreditations, because this time last year, as I said, we were turned down for MotoGP, but this year we've been accredited straight away because of the figures that we've got, because of the guests that we've had and how well you've responded to them. So we're over the moon, and it's great thanks to all of you that are watching on and listening. So yeah, we would like to do more. It helps me. I need to, it helps improve my level of interviewing, because at World Superbikes, and as you'll see from Remy Gardner and hear from Remy Gardner on Wednesday, MotoGP level riders are completely different. They're schooled differently. Their media training is different. They're not as open with their answers, so I have to be a little bit more cute with my questions, let's say. And they're not quite the off the cuff chats that we do with the guys and girls at BSB. So there's a massive learning curve to come, but it's also getting your face known and getting trusted. It's almost starting all over again. So yes, we would like to bring more from World Superbike and from MotoGP, because you lot deserve it. Let's have a look. Modern day, we need to have World Superbike electronics. Yeah, see, no, the biggest difficulty is the transition from BSB to Worlds is the electronics. It's a tough one. We've said it before, we'll say it again. BSB is tough to come into, but it's also tough to leave, which is great for the fans because, excuse me 1 second. Sorry. We'd love to see our riders move on to the world stage, but at the moment, when the opportunities aren't quite there and they're looking at Moto2, ex-Moto2 world champions in Remy Gardner and people like Jorge Navarro and Nico Antonelli and people like that, they're overlooking national level riders who are superb riders. So it does worry me where Max Cook and Storm and Spud Nesbitt and Rory and riders of that 20, 21, 22 age group are going to end up. Let's have a look. Richard, how would Davey Todd feel if Scott Swan had entered Armoy? He's on home territory there. He's Scott Swan, isn't he? But yeah, very, very difficult. That was tough over the weekend. Swanee's a great kid, but he's a hard rider. But there was nothing malicious in what he did. But yeah, it could have been avoided. There's no doubt about that. We've got a lot of time for Swanee. We've known him since 2018, 2019 when he was in Motostar. And watching his progression has been fantastic. It hasn't been as quick as he would have liked, but he's getting there. And that Hunt's Motorcycles Honda of his, he's doing well this season. But yeah, I'm not sure he's top of Davey's Christmas card list, that's for sure. Let's have a look. Dave Greenslade, Chloe Jones, so good. Yeah, super girl. We saw her at Donington, had a catch up with her. always got time for Chloe, and she's doing a great job. And for that lap that she did at Donington, which was faster than Anna Carrasco, and the I can't remember what it is now. The ladies' championship, anyway. She was faster than all of the girls on the R7s, which was brilliant for her on that ZXR 400. Over the moon for her. Best hire car story. I'll say that for another day. Sam Palmer, how are you, mate? Nice to see you. Crumbly Mile. Yeah, Tommy has got the bit between his teeth. That is for sure. And Ido was a dark horse for the title. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely couldn't agree more. He's not Cress anymore, is he? It was lovely of oh my days. Now I've forgotten the name now. Oh, somebody will remind me. Oh, good grief. It's been a long day. I've been editing all day. Jennifer, remind me. Oh, she was Pit Lane. Amy Reynolds. There we go. I got there eventually. But Amy Reynolds mentioned it at Knock Hill, didn't she? That Christian referred to himself as Cress in an egg mayo sandwich back on the podcast at Cadwell last year. So we're going to hopefully do an annual catch up with Christian. It'd be great to catch him at Cadwell Park and just see what's different. And see that run into the championship this year. But absolutely a dark horse for the championship. My MP was with Danny Kent. I think that's faded a little bit now. Because he is, what is he? He's a lot behind Christian. My maths is terrible, but that looks like 45 points to me behind Christian with Kyle in the middle. So it's going to be a big ask, but it's not over for anybody. That's an absolute fact. Let's see. If Ben does it again this year, surely he'll get a Superbike ride. You'd like to think so. You would like to think so. He certainly earned it because the last chance he had with Bournemouth Kawasaki back in 2019 just didn't work out well enough for him. It was such a difficult one. So yeah, I'd like to see him back on a Superbike and give him that extra chance and just prove what he can do. Dow switching manufacturer for next year. I'd heard the same, but yeah, that's unconfirmed as yet. But yeah, no, you're right, Sam. I'd heard the same. Do you think Tommy will move to World Superbike or MotoGP if he retains the title? Wiggy, Lincolnshire Massive, how are you? He definitely won't go to MotoGP. That is an absolute fact. I would bear my arse in Wally's window if he ended up in MotoGP. World Superbike, given the connections now between the BSB team and the World Superbike team, nothing is impossible. Nothing. So I certainly wouldn't be a betting man on that front because things are going so well for him. So why would they not take a chance? He's the most successful Honda Fireblade rider, apart from the Bridgestone shod guys down at Suzuka over the weekend, in the world. So yeah, he's obviously doing something right, isn't he? Let's have a look. There's no quackers. What do you think FS3 will run? I don't know. I'll ask Darren at Cadwell. The options are reasonably limitless, but yeah, they've got a few. Let's have a look. Jennifer, Brad Peary's next move. Oof. I noticed Brad had he'd put something out over the weekend, hadn't he, of the times, and he's still a little bit sore about the separation at Gearlink. And as I said in the show just gone, that Reese hasn't quite hit the mark. Now, whether that's a Kawasaki balancing thing, whether Reese isn't gelling with the bike, but Brad's lap times have been faster, and he was faster on the old R6 as well. So on the Appleyard R6, so the kid's got talent. There's no doubt. But I would absolutely love to see Brad Peary back, no question at all, back in Supersport and give him a competitive ride and just give him a chance to prove himself a bit more. Let's have a look. Got love Ron Haslam interview. Thank you, Essie. That's very kind of you. Your uncle's married to his sister. How wonderful. There you go. Neil Gibbons, hola Dave, what is Brad Peary's next move, mate? I think I just answered that one. I think Jennifer had popped in with that one. Who knows? And I genuinely don't know. He needs a super sport ride, a competitive one, and that'll do. Rick P, sounds like it would be interesting to know more about what you have to do to get the accreditation and interviews, etc. Thank you. Yeah. As I said, BSB, we don't have press accreditation for BSB. We just turn up and do it. And the fact that Stuart doesn't say, no, we can't, is kind of approval. in that kind of way. So we're promoting the series. We don't say things out of turn, and we get to carry out the interviews without restriction. That's the word I was looking for. For World Superbike, and the Dorna Run series, you have to prove your worth as a journalist or as a news outlet, as a podcast, whatever you do. Every year, photographers as well fall into that bracket as well. You have to have a certain amount of engagement, a certain amount of reach on your show, a certain amount of social media reach and content and things like that. Doesn't matter how, and this isn't blowing smoke up my ass. This is part of conversation. It doesn't matter how good you are at interviewing, how professional you are, and how good the level of guests are. If you haven't got the reach that they're looking for, they have a minimum criteria, you're not going to get through the door, because they would open it then to all and sundry. So you have to meet their requirements. And I'm so proud that we've made it for MotoGP. We got accreditation last year for World Superbike, as some of you will remember. Mitch and Roman and Andrea at World Superbike are big supporters of what we do. They're a little more open in their support of new media, which is what we are. We're classed as new media. The one thing that we won't get to do at MotoGP at the moment is video the podcasts, because there are huge restrictions to filming in MotoGP. It is the Formula One of bike racing, as we know, and there are so many restrictions. Even in hospitality, we can't even film in there, just talking heads. We're going to try and speak to Alex, who's head of Dorna Communications, and see, look, this is what we're going to try and do. This is what we'd like to do. We've got options to do it with Digia at another GP, which we'll do via Riverside FM, as Keith Ewan does with his show. What's the difference between sitting next to somebody or sitting at the end of a computer or end of a phone, as I'm doing now, as Kyle and I have done tonight, to then actually being sitting next to them? So we've got a bit of work to do on that. So I'll apologize in advance that we might not be able to film them, but there will be a slideshow that comes with it. So Jennifer will be with me taking a million photos, and we'll just turn it into a slideshow as we're talking and try and get it as close to as a moving image as we can, without going blind from editing so much. But yeah, that's what we have to do. There are a few hoops to jump through and standards to meet, which, as I say, we're super proud of, and thank you to all of you for being a part of that. Crumbly Mal, I hear Josh Watley is out of the MLAV team. Who's going to replace him? Any news on that? That's a tricky one with Josh. I don't know what's gone on there. That's the press release and the quote was that he's outgrown the bike, and it seems that coming back from the serious injury at Qatar last season, he almost basically said he was just too heavy, and you can train that off, and it's a little bit strange with Josh. I don't know what that situation isn't ideal for him or for the team. Any news on anybody replacing him? The only one I can think of, and this is courtesy of our great mate Matt Dunn, I'm not using this as my own information because I'm not that well connected. It may well be Vicente Perez, who's the local ambulance chaser in Moto3 at the moment. So it won't be a British rider. None of them are old enough. When the news was announced, everybody was banging the drum for Casey O'Gorman and for Eddie O'Shea. Neither of them are old enough. Eddie's not 18 until the end of September, and you have to be 18 to compete in Moto3. So we've got a little bit of a wait yet before we get another Brit into Moto3. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Chloe's mint. Yeah, no, she is absolutely superb. Eddie O'Shea, as Woody says, yes, but not until I think 22nd of September, 25th of September, something like that, is Eddie O'Shea's 18th. Andy Wellborn, great to see you, mate. No worries about missing it. It'll be online. It'll all get uploaded when we finish, and I'll put the audio out as well because I remembered to press record. And if you've seen the Sam Lowe's video, I forgot to turn my microphone on. Dark Wolf of Odin, if you could bring any two riders past in their prime or present into BSB right now to ride for your own team, who would you choose? Two riders from the past in their prime. Chris Walker and Yukio Kageyama. How about that? Get Brad Peary on a sport bike. No, that's a great idea. Yeah, good idea, Woody. He would go really well on that. Norman Kane, there's his Norman Kane poking the bear. How will Pecco go with his 2025 teammate? That Mark lad looks like he's got potential. Yeah, he's Pecco is as calm and cool as you like. That's going to be the most fascinating dynamic since the wall was built between Jorge and Valentino in the Yamaha garage. Nobody knows how that's going to turn out until it starts, because Mark is going to have to be at the top of his game with the mind games. We know he's the best of mind games. We know he's the very, very best at that. It beat Valentino, who was the master previously. And I'm not going to get into a kicking match over that. We know the outcome of that. Valentino was out Valentino'd. Sorry if that offends you, but that's just how I feel. And it's my podcast. But no, that's going to take mind games to a whole new level, because Pecco is clinical. And I think it will affect him. He says it won't, but it can't not, because Mark will try absolutely everything. It's like when he follows people in qualifying and they slow down and he slows down. He is absolutely shameless. So we're going to see mind games to a whole new level, I think, next season. Lee Eubank, hey Dave, hope you guys are well. Can Slick Moto events get a shout out as we head to Mugello this coming weekend? Also, could you get an interview with Scott Reddin to discuss his season? Have a great time in Mugello, by the way. Slick Moto events. Well done, mate. And I hope the family are well. Scott Reddin's a difficult one. He's not really allowed to talk too much about what he's doing. And he's also not really, from what I gather, he's not really that bothered. The cycling thing is the most important. The interview that he did with Greg Haynes over the weekend on World Superbike kind of pointed the same way. Greg was asking some really, really good questions, but he just wasn't forthcoming about them. And the worst thing that could happen for the show is that we get it arranged and we get sat down and we promote it all the way through and we do the chat, and he's just not feeling it. And that would be, I need to get to chat with Scott first to see what we can do and say, look, this is what we do. This is how we do it. Would you sit down and chat with us and talk about this? And I think that will happen after his BMW contract ends. There'll be a lot more to be said after that, rather than there is at the minute. Let's have a look. Hickey, Hizzy and Hodgson. Yeah, people, press the like button. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't already. I got told off for that the other day. I put it out on one of the videos, didn't I? Make sure you like and subscribe. And it was the first time I'd done it. Michael Laverty is God. Him and Shaky can make their hair grow back. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do these days, isn't it? Let's have a look. FHO. Forgotten in BSB. Is it time to move to World Superbike with new riders? Interesting one with FHO. There's all sorts of things at the moment of whether FHO will run in BSB next year. Or whether they'll do Moto America, roads, just wildcards in World Superbike. One thing that is noticeable is the absence of Faye. She's only been, I think, to one round this year, which I think was Alton Park. We did a bit of a chat with her on stage, with Kyle, actually, on the fan merch stage. But she's been conspicuous by her absence since. And the team, regardless of what they try and do for Josh and for Hickey, it's after the TT, so traditionally Hickey doesn't do so well after that because he's done what he needs to do, but he's had such a lackluster season for one reason or another. And Josh needs to be back at the front. He can still do it. He's still got the talent. He's still got the speed. And I think that the most frustrating thing for Josh and for Brains, his crew chief, is he's just not there with the bike at the minute. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes towards the end of the season. They were signed really early last year, but there's no sign of that this year. So I think a lot of people keeping their powder dry on what's going on with silly season this year. But yeah, I think the future of FHO seems to be up in the air at the minute. Metroid Bayless in the toilets at Alton Park. That's not something to shout about. With Connor riding FHO bike at Armoy, do we think Brooks will be moving on at the end of this year and Connor taking over his road seat? Depends if FHO carry on with the roads. After his performance this year, there's no reason for him to move from that team from a roads point of view. But I think from a BSB perspective, Sam, he'll really want to drop in with a team that can offer him a podium challenging bike. That's for sure. Yeah, let's have a look. Josh to PBM if they run 2 bikes. Yeah, because I can't see Glenn leaving there for next year. Hickey to run his own team. He was running his own stocker at Cadwell, and it looked mint. Oh, Hickey can run his own team if he wants to. It just depends if he can get the sponsorship and if he wants to put his own money into it. There's no doubt he's got the tools for the job with the PHR Performance. But he's going to need a big sponsor if he wants to do it himself. But I still think FHO will have something, and Monster as well, to do with Hickey for the roads, because he's such a strong bet for a podium and for race wins. I think that's answered your question there, Dave. That's for sure. Being starstruck is understandable. There's still many riders I get starstruck by, and I think that's going to happen more and more if we get to World Superbikes and MotoGP. We've hung around the BSB paddock for 10 years like a bad smell. So you get used to seeing the boys and girls in the paddock there. It becomes kind of easy to interview them. But like with Toprak and Remy Gardner that comes out on Wednesday, Remy's a fascinating one, because usually the first 3 questions I ask can get me about 5 minutes. We'd been granted half an hour with him, which was brilliant, from Ollie Rushby and our friend Tim Seed, who's Remy's data engineer, who organised it in the first place and put it to Remy that we'd like to do it. His answers are so succinct and short. And you have to be on your toes. And I was sat there. I did the first 3 questions thinking this will be a good 5 or 6 minutes. I think a minute and a half, and we'd done the first 3 questions. And I'm sat there going, okay, now I've got to dig deep. So I'm now thinking of questions that I need to ask and trying to listen to the answers at the same time. And we eventually got to half an hour. Then we got onto a subject that he really liked, which then got him talking a little bit more. So you'll be able to watch and listen to that on Wednesday. And it's a great chat. He's a great kid. He's very focused as the 2022 Moto2 World Champ. 2021, wasn't it? 2021 Moto2 World Champion. I've been talking for an hour and a half now. Starting to lose where I am. Let's have a look. Hickey's lads at PHR are top-notch running riders at BSB and the TT. Yeah, Daz is as crew chief, and Daz's son Leon and Bing Bong as well. If you listen to Richard Cooper in that interview, he'll tell you all about those boys. They're decent young lads, and the future of crew chiefs and senior mechanics in BSB and the roads. Hickey's name enough? Yeah, it may be enough to turn the sponsors' heads. He's got the clout for it, that's for sure. He's certainly got plenty of fans going on. That's without a doubt. What's going on at Paget's? Luke Mossey, an awesome ride yesterday, but they had a stinker at the TT. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it? You stick Luke Mossey on the bike and he has a great win. It's great to see Luke back. Such a great fella. It's such a travesty that he was left without a ride again at the start of the season after the difficulties of starting last season and the troubles that they had. And I don't know what's changed in that team. It can't have been easy for Davey Todd to finish behind it, that's for sure. But I think they run the 24 Hondas, but something was seriously amiss at the TT for Connor to walk away and for Hutchie to be kind of nowhere, unfortunately. I know he has his physical limitations, but even so, it was a tough time for them at the TT, but they seem to have got the short circuit nailed with the stocker. They couldn't do it with the Superbike, but Paget seemed to put out an absolutely awesome stocker. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Storm Stacey thoughts. That boy needs a good bike. I think Storm will be one of the movers at the end of the season. I think 5 seasons with GR Motorsport. I think he's ready for a move. I don't know if Brent's ready for him to move. I don't know. I don't know anything other than my thoughts. I think after 5 years, it's a bit like Jacko last year with FS3. A change is as good as a rest, and the same with Jason. If Jennifer has a great saying, if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. And I think Storm's growing up incredibly quickly. We know he's had the difficulties in the past with his dad, and he's had 5 seasons now. And while the results are there, there needs to be another step. Now, if he can make that step with GR Motorsport, then fantastic. He keeps that continuity. Brent keeps that continuity, and he also has that the clout with his sponsors that they've got a rider with such a great following on social media, which is super important these days. there are riders that have been overlooked for rides because their social media reach wasn't enough. And that's absolutely true. Doesn't matter which rider told me that, but there are rides that have been won and lost because of social media reach. Because that's how you sell the team to sponsors, which is something you maybe not considered before, but it's absolutely true. But yeah, let's see what happens as the rounds run down. Whether Storm will continue with GR Motorsport or he moves to a different team. That's going to be one of the conundrums. Doc's vlogs, all your pods are brilliant, but the Ron Haslam one was the best. Thank you very much. That's really kind of you. Who will take the factory Ducati World Superbike if Bautista leaves? He ain't leaving. After what I've read today, I don't think he's going anywhere, mate. I don't. I think he'll stay. He says he don't want to end the season like this. And I know there's the weight penalty issue, and he has the 6 kilos added, but he's still 6 kilos lighter than Toprak, who I think is 20 kilos lighter than Scott, which tells you a lot about what Scott's issues are. Does Moss's result prove how good the Honda is and how good Mossy is? Luke is a superbike rider. There's no doubt in Luke's talent. The man's rapid. He is a superbike rider. He's not had the best of seasons over the last 2 or 3 years, especially since breaking his back at Thruxton was a massive turning point. But take nothing away from Luke Mossy as a rider. He is top notch. Ash Edwards, I can't imagine anybody better to take that ride other than you, mate. Let's have a look. Storm and Mossy to FHO. That's if FHO is still there. But yeah, that would be a great shout. Race Boy, the Honda is great without the electronics. We can see this because it's competitive in BSB and it's really good at stock, which is exactly why it's winning all things super stock. It's a great point. I think they've tried to mask a lot in World Superbikes with electronics. And when your riders are coming from Moto 2 and Moto GP from prototype riders, they don't really need that electronic. They've got the feel. They've got the finesse, as Remy said. Moto 2, Moto 3, Moto GP is all about finesse, whereas you move to World Superbikes and it's a bit more carnage because of the electronics. The electronics in World Superbike are open, which makes them at times more technically advanced than MotoGP. Because I think there's a cap on the electronics at MotoGP of what they can and can't do. So. I might be talking out of turn. I might be talking out my arse, but I'm sure that's what I was led to believe. I'd absolutely love to see Tommy have a go on the Factory World Superbike. I think he could really take it to the Spanish lads. Same goes for Taz. Yeah, that's a tricky one between all the teams and MIE and the World Superbike team and BSB. There's an awful lot going on behind closed doors with that. Most of which isn't for public consumption at the moment, but I'm sure it'll all play out before the end of the season, and there'll be some news coming out of Honda at Honda UK before the end of the year. But whether would love to see Tommy have a go on the Factory World Superbike. He may or may not have had a go on it already. I don't know. I need to get confirmation on that. Let's have a look. 15 kilos lighter than Buliger. Yeah, exactly. Great to see Lee Johnston back. Absolutely. Yeah, that's been a big plus point, hasn't it? Seeing Lee Johnston back, seeing the general back at Brands Hatch, back on the bike again. We weren't sure if we're going to see him back, but there he is. He's back out there, and the paddock's better off for having the general in it as well. So it was great to see him back. Hope someone gives Thomas Strudwick a chance next year on a proper race bike, because I think he's a real talent. Been so consistently fast on the BMW F900. No, you're right, Chris. Absolutely. He was top 3 in the British Talent Cup in 2018, wasn't he? I think it was Rory, Thomas, and Max Cook, I think, if I remember right. This is where we started digging into the memory banks and pick things out. But no, Thomas Strudwick was a class rider, and he is a class rider. Didn't get the chances he deserved, didn't have the money to make the move that he needed to in the British Championship. So went out to Spain to play his trade out there, ended up in the ESBK Spanish Superbike Championship, I think in the stock class. Was out there for 3 years, I think, which made it really difficult for him to be noticed, because once you disappear from the British shorts, then you're out of sight, out of mind in a lot of ways. So for him to come back to do the F900 Cup and almost keep Coops honest. I think he's the only one that really could take it to Coops in a lot of the rounds. He is, yeah. Thomas Strudwick is a class rider. I agree. I would love to see him on a competitive bike, and put him in super sport. Put him. I don't think he's ready for BSB yet, but yeah, put him on a really competitive bike in a front running championship. He's doing great with the BMW. I think he's doing sport bike every now and again as well, isn't he? So yeah, he's getting his feet back under the table back in the UK and relearning the tracks again on the new bikes, which is class. Dave Woody, can Lee Johnston reach the microphone? We have ones that attach here, Woody, so it's fine. We'll just pin it to him. What's Redding doing next year? Oh, and he'll be on a BMW, I would suspect, unless BMW want to pay him an absolute fortune to depart the fold. And he said on the World Superbike interviews he wants to stay in World Superbike, but the options are limited with only one team. So unless somebody else starts running BMWs, maybe he would come back to BSB. Maybe Leon Haslam will run two bikes, because with his ties with SMR and Rocket, and that would seem a likely landing role for him. But also his wife's American and they've got baby on the way, so maybe he'll go to America. Who knows? But I'd like to see him back in BSB on a BMW. That'd be good fun. Let's have a look. Do you think David's regretting sticking around to answer questions yet? No, not yet. Not yet. Absolutely no understanding about that one at all. Do you think Brad Ray will be in World Superbike next year? Do I think he will? I would like to think he will. Yeah, I'd like to think he'd get another year on a slightly more competitive bike. There's so much going on with that team, and the language barrier, and well, the language barrier is the biggest thing, and the electronics. And while you're trying to learn the electronics at the same time, having an issue with the language barrier with a crew chief makes it even harder. You can only do so much with hand actions. So yeah, I would like to see him have another year, but with with a slightly different setup, with a slightly different support mechanism for him, and just show what he can do. And then if that doesn't work, then back to BSB and make a great living and reclaim that title again, I think. What have we got? Let's have a look. Neil, I have no idea. How do you think Conrad Muse will do at Lommel MXG this weekend? I have zero idea of what goes on in the dirt. It's hard enough to keep up with the tarmac stuff, let alone with the dirt as well. So maybe some of the guys who are watching who maybe got a bit more of bit more information and a lot more knowledge than I have on the dirt side of things. Sorry, mate, I can't answer that for you. Joe Talbot's a class act. Joe's brilliant. Big Joe's looking after him well. The JR Performance. He is the future of BSB. He'll step up. I would hope next season, actually. He's riding the stocker well, so he's getting towards that 20-year-old. He's ready for stepping up next season. I think that would be a great addition to the BSB. So there's one that we get. As Pete Haslow asked earlier, who would we move up? Yeah, Joe Talbot's definitely one of them. What do I think of the F900 Cup? Old talented riders and young hopefuls on the same track. It's a difficult one, mate, because there are a lot of those level of riders from the F900 Cup are club riders. And then you throw in James Ellison into the mix and Thomas Strudwick. And I don't know. It's definitely a manufacturer-driven event, and it gets a lot of good press for the lads that are doing it and the lasses as well. With Jamie Hanks Elliott, she did a great ride at the weekend as well in the BMW F900 R Cup. It's a great proving ground for riders, that's for sure. But it's a great support class. That's what it is. It's a great support class. I don't think it's a stepping stone for anybody, particularly, but as a support class and for helping riders get onto a British Superbike schedule that maybe wouldn't be there ordinarily, I think is absolutely brilliant. Thoughts on Armoy road races this weekend? Armoy is always a great event, isn't it? Davey Todd, no Michael Dunlop. He said he's not going because there's no money left. And as he said, for all his family have done for Armoy over the years. Sorry, my lead is trapped. That's it. That's this lead, not my lead trapped. Armoy is always a great event. And I'm not seeing the full entry list, but Davey's going to be strong there. He loves it there. Connor's got a point to prove. But it'd be interesting. I don't know if Paul Jordan's out there. I don't know if the General's out there. I've not seen entry lists. I don't know who's out there. A few more names than appear at Oliver's Mount, unfortunately, because they always seem to clash with bigger events. Maybe Jim Hind will be out there, and some of the Irish lads as well. Mike Brown, Sweeney, and the rest of them. That would be pretty cool. Let's have a look. Seeing Ellison wheel his own trolley around the paddock was a weird sight, but fair play for the comeback. I don't like the BMW Cup thing at all. It's a shit R6 Cup. The only thing different with the R6 Cup, at least it spawned a British champion, didn't it, in Tommy Hill? And Tommy Bridewell as well. It spawned too, and the World Supersport champion in Cal Crutchlow. So, yeah, that's one way of putting it. Armoy will probably be on BBC Northern Ireland on the Sunday night or the Monday night, I guess. Unless Greenlight, as I say, have got the ITV4 part. Right, what have we done now? I've done an extra 40 minutes. That'll do. I'm going to bore you all to pieces, but thank you. There's you've all stayed for the duration, so it's much appreciated. I'm going to go and have a hot chocolate with Jennifer. I've barely seen her since she came in from work, but this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you for joining in. Thank you for all your questions. Thanks for joining us and for your support. We couldn't do World Superbike and MotoGP without you. So it's down to you guys and girls that we get to do what we do. And hopefully we'll get some fantastic interviews for you. We've already got David Alonso, as we said. That's been confirmed. We're waiting on confirmation for Alonso Lopez, but that shouldn't be an option. That shouldn't be too hard a job. And we're going to go for Hervé Poncharal and Lucio Cecchinello. So just stay tuned. We'll promote it all through the social media. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for joining in. And the last thank you to Kyle, as always, for joining us on the live show. Thanks to FanMerch for supporting us and doing these live shows. And the very final thank you, Jennifer downstairs. Thank you for looking after the comments. Put the kettle on, love. I'm coming down for a hot chocolate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Good night. If I know how to turn it off. Oh, there it is. I found the button. There we go. Who knew? Social media, eh? Technology. Thanks, everyone. Good night.